Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. He didn't knock. The door creaked open without warning, and there he was, standing in the dim light like he didn't know how dangerous that moment could become. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, legs bare, robe loose around my shoulders, still and breathless as his gaze met mine. Something shifted in the air. Not loud, not obvious, but unmistakable, like the silence before a summer storm. His eyes moved slowly. I felt it like a touch, tracing from the soft lines of my thighs up to the curve of my collarbone. Then he paused, lips a beat too long, a glance too knowing. I should have said something. Should have pulled the rope tighter. Should have looked away. But instead, I just breathed. Shallow. Quiet. And I watched him watching me. This wasn't the first time there'd been a pause between us that felt heavier than it should. Not quite wrong, not quite right. Just complicated. He wasn't a stranger, but he wasn't supposed to look at me like that either. Not with that quiet hunger in his eyes. Not with that slight clench in his jaw. He stepped further in, slow, hesitant, like crossing some invisible line. We weren't touching. We didn't say a word. But the room suddenly felt too small. Too warm. He reached for something on the nightstand. That's what he told himself. That's what I let him believe. His fingers brushed mine for half a second. Accidental. Electric. My breath caught. He didn't pull away immediately. There are moments in life that stretch time. This was one of them. Suspended between what we were supposed to be and what we almost were. And in that second, I wondered, had he come to my room by mistake, or was this something we both knew was coming? And just like that, he turned, leaving the room as if nothing had happened. But everything had. The door clicked shut behind him, but the air he left behind didn't settle. It pulsed thick with something unspoken, something that refused to fade. I sat there for a long moment, robe still half open, staring at the empty space where he'd stood. My heart hadn't caught up yet. It still raced like he was here, like his eyes were still on me. I thought maybe it was over. That we'd both pretend it never happened. But when I heard the soft knock a few minutes later, hesitant, almost guilty, I knew it wasn't. "Hey," he said quietly, peeking in, his voice low and careful. "I forgot my phone." It was sitting on the nightstand, right where his hand had brushed mine. I picked it up slowly, feeling the echo of that touch, and held it out to him. He stepped closer, his eyes never quite meeting mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. His fingers grazed mine again when he took it, and that tiny spark was somehow louder than the silence around us. He didn't pull back this time. "You okay?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just small talk. It carried a weight, a worry he didn't know how to name. "I'm fine," I lied. He looked up then, really looked. And that was the mistake. Or maybe it wasn't. The way his gaze softened, cautious, tender, like he was trying to read every thought I wasn't saying, it made breathing hard. "You shouldn't," I started, then stopped. He tilted his head slightly, just enough to make me look at him again. "Shouldn't what?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The distance between us was just a few inches now. The light caught on the edge of his jaw, the slow rise and fall of his chest. Every second stretched thin. I could smell his cologne, faint, clean, familiar. My pulse matched the rhythm of the quiet. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words never came. Instead, he stepped back, as if pulling himself away from the edge of a cliff. "Good night," he said softly. And just like that, he was gone again. But this time, I didn't look away from the door. Because some part of me knew he'd come back. I didn't sleep. The sheets felt too warm, the silence too loud. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he looked at me, not like I was his stepmom, not like I was someone off limits, but like I was something he hadn't figured out how to live without. I told myself it was nothing. A moment. A look. A mistake. But when I heard the soft creak of the hallway floorboards again, the second time that night, I knew it wasn't over. I opened the door before he could knock. He stood there in the dark, shirt wrinkled from sleep or pacing, I couldn't tell. He wasn't smiling. He looked torn. He started, then stopped. I didn't want to leave it like that. My hand was still on the doorknob. I should have stepped back. I didn't. I didn't mean to walk in like that, he added, voice rough with something that wasn't guilt. Not really. I know, I whispered. A beat. 2. The quiet between us stretched until it started to ache. I don't know what's happening, he said. I did. But I couldn't say it. Not without crossing a line we couldn't uncross. He stepped inside, just a little. Close enough for me to see the flicker in his eyes, hesitation, fear, and something else, deeper. I think about it, he confessed, eyes locked on mine. Way more than I should. That was the moment. The one where the air changed. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But instead, I just stood there as he lifted his hand, slow, trembling, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered at my temple, barely there. A featherlight touch that sent heat down my spine. I closed my eyes, just for a second. Just to feel. Then I stepped back. He didn't follow. You need to go, I said softly, but there was no edge in my voice. Just ache. He nodded, slowly. Not because he agreed, but because he had to. And as he walked away for the second time that night, I leaned against the doorframe, heart beating too loud, knowing full well the hardest part wasn't saying no. It was knowing how badly we both wanted to say yes. It was past midnight when I heard the door again. This time, he didn't knock. He opened it slowly, like he was afraid it would break something, the air, the moment, me. I didn't move. I just sat there, back against the headboard, legs drawn under the robe that was starting to slip from one shoulder again. I didn't fix it. His eyes found mine, and for a long time, neither of us said anything. The space between us was still. Dense. Breathing. I tried to stay in my room, he said quietly, shutting the door behind him. I tried to forget what your skin felt like under my hand. My chest tightened. My fingers curled around the sheet beside me. I can't stop thinking about you, he added, voice low, raw. I swallowed hard, afraid if I spoke, my voice would crack open too much truth. But he didn't need my words, he saw it all over me. He crossed the room slowly, like each step took effort. Like gravity was heavier near me. He stopped just short of touching. Inches. Barely. His hand lifted, paused in the air like he was asking without asking. I didn't pull away. His fingers brushed my collarbone, soft, reverent, then followed the line of the robe as it slipped a little further. Not indecent. Just close. Too close. I looked up at him then. Really looked. And what I saw wasn't just want. It was ache. It was everything he'd been holding in his chest for months. Maybe longer. You make me forget who I'm supposed to be, he whispered. And you make me remember who I used to be, I said, barely audible. His forehead pressed against mine. Not a kiss, not yet, but closer than we'd ever been. I felt the heat of his breath. I felt the way his hand trembled slightly against my arm. My eyes closed. And for a second, I thought, this is it. We're about to fall. But then, nothing. No kiss. No explosion. Just the unbearable closeness of two people standing on the edge, neither brave enough to jump, yet. When he finally pulled away, it wasn't rejection. It was restraint. A promise held just under the skin. The rain came just after midnight, soft at first, then steady, falling in waves against the windows like a rhythm neither of us could ignore. The room was dim, lit only by the amber glow of the lamp near the bed. Everything was quiet except the storm and the quiet thunder building inside us. He stood in the doorway, soaked in shadow, eyes fixed on me as if he wasn't sure if he was dreaming. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I just held his gaze and let the silence open the door he couldn't. When he crossed the room, the air shifted. Heavy. Heated. Every step closer stripped away another layer of restraint. His hand reached mine first, slow, deliberate. Fingers laced. Not with urgency, but reverence. as if he was touching something he thought he'd never be allowed to hold. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, then across my wrist, delicate, almost accidental, but it set something loose beneath my skin. I stepped closer. Our breath mingled before our lips ever did. He didn't kiss me like a man rushing toward desire. He kissed me like someone memorizing every second. Like he knew he might never taste it again. My breath melted into his. His hand found the small of my back. Mine rested on his chest, feeling his heartbeat thudding like a war drum against my palm. The rain outside grew louder, but in the room, time slowed. The edges of everything softened sound, thought, the lines we'd drawn so carefully between us. We didn't speak. We let touch speak for us. His forehead rested against mine, our noses brushing, our eyes shut. The moment was tender, not tentative. Our bodies spoke the words we couldn't say, the ache, the need, the surrender. When his hands slid over my arms and down to my waist, he wasn't claiming. He was asking. And my answer came in the way I leaned into him, chest to chest, skin to skin, two people no longer pretending they weren't falling. The bed welcomed us like a secret we had both been keeping. We moved without rush, as if the world outside didn't exist, as if nothing else had ever felt this real. His mouth found the hollow of my neck, and I shivered, not from cold, but from the way it felt to finally be seen without fear. I whispered his name. Not loud, not urgent, just full. And when we finally stopped moving, when the quiet settled back in, we stayed close, tangled, still, warm. His hand found mine again beneath the sheets. A promise. A question. A truth we didn't need to speak aloud. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside, something else had finally broken open. The morning light slipped through the curtains like it didn't know what had happened the night before. Soft. Harmless. Cruel in its quiet normalcy. I was awake before him, staring at the ceiling, my body still warm from the imprint of his. He lay beside me, breathing slow and even, one arm still draped across my waist like he didn't want the night to end. But it had. And now there was the morning. He stirred gently, lips brushing my shoulder as he shifted. I didn't move. I didn't know how. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice hoarse with sleep and something heavier. I nodded. But I didn't speak. Because I wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. We hadn't planned this. It hadn't felt like a choice. It had felt inevitable, like the rain, like the pull of gravity, like the truth catching up. He turned toward me, searching my face for something I didn't know how to give. "I don't regret it," he said softly. "Do you?" My throat tightened. I turned to look at him then, really look. His eyes held no shame, only worry, only want. "Still." "No," I whispered. "But I don't know what it means." Before he could answer, a knock shattered the stillness. 3 short taps. We both froze. "Mom," a woman's voice called through the door. Not mine. His. His real mother. I sat up too fast. The sheet slipped, and so did the illusion. His eyes widened. He grabbed for his clothes on the floor in a panic. "She's not supposed to be back until tomorrow." I pressed a finger to my lips. My heart hammered in my chest, louder than the knock, louder than the night echoing in our bones. "Just a sec," he called, voice cracking. Footsteps retreated. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same. He looked at me, shirt half-buttoned, eyes wide and wild. "What do we do now?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. All I knew was that last night changed something. Not just between us, inside us. And no matter how carefully we walked back out into the day, the night was still under our skin. She found him sitting on the back steps just after sunset, barefoot, elbows on his knees, head tilted back toward the sky like he was trying to memorize its silence. He didn't hear her at first. Or maybe he did, and just needed a second before he turned around. "I thought you left," he said softly. "I almost did." He looked up at her, and in that moment, everything that had passed between them hung in the air, heavy, sacred, unresolved. She sat beside him, Not touching, not speaking. Just being. The cool wood beneath them, the smell of summer rain still lingering in the yard, the hush of what could have been and maybe still was. I keep thinking, he said after a long pause, about that moment in your room. The first time. The way you looked at me. She smiled faintly, eyes low. I was terrified. Of me? No, she said. Of how badly I didn't want to stop. He reached for her hand. This time there was no rush, no trembling. Just fingers finding fingers, steady and warm. I don't know what happens next, he admitted. Me neither. But I know what that night meant. It wasn't just, he trailed off, searching for a word that didn't reduce it. It wasn't nothing. She turned to face him. It was everything. He nodded. Slowly. Thoughtfully. Then leaned in, not with hunger this time, but with the softness of someone saying goodbye without saying the word. His lips touched her forehead. Nothing more. Nothing less. And in that one quiet kiss was everything they couldn't fix, everything they couldn't keep, and everything they would never forget. They didn't promise anything. They didn't make plans. But when she stood to leave, he didn't stop her. And when she glanced back one last time, he was still sitting there, barefoot, heartbroken, and changed. Some love stories aren't meant to last. But some moments are.